One of the main attractions of the movie, The Chronicles of Riddick, was not only the protagonist, but also one of its antagonists, the influential commander of the Necromonger Empire, Vaako. Karl Urban brilliantly embodied this character, creating an ambitious and intelligent hero. Equally striking was Vaako's wife, known simply as Dame Vaako. She supported her husband in everything, yet she constantly pushed him to climb higher up the career ladder, to the very top. These two played a crucial role in the storyline, arguably more important than the Necromonger leader, Lord Marshal Xylaw. Moreover, Xylaw was defeated by Riddick and disappeared from the story, while Vaako and his wife had much more interesting times ahead. In this video, I propose to trace the history of this remarkable couple and find out what happened to them after Riddick took control of the Necromonger Empire. Vaako's exact origins were not described, but considering the characteristics of the Necromonger Empire, it's easy to trace. By the time of the Chronicles of Riddick, there were no original Necromongers left, those who were born as such. Years ago, the Necromongers had abandoned childbearing and natural population growth. Instead, they conquered numerous worlds, enslaved their inhabitants, and transformed them into Necromongers through a special ritual. Thus, all the Necromongers in the Chronicles of Riddick were converts, including even the Lord Marshal. Consequently, Vaako also once belonged to another people, but his world was conquered by the Necromongers, and he likely underwent the ritual in early childhood, joining his conquerors. In the Necromonger Empire, Vaako quickly made a brilliant career. It was said that he was unusually young for such an important position. Vaako was considered an excellent commander, as devoted to his cause as possible, and an outstanding fighter. He was often chosen as one of the trusted commanders of the Lord Marshal to lead the Necromonger forces during planetary attacks. Being a strict adherent of Necroism, Vaako usually obeyed the Lord Marshal's will without question. It was mentioned that when Xylaw, fearing a prophecy stating that he would be killed by a Furian, attacked Furia and decided to destroy its entire population, Vaako actively helped him in this and participated in the destruction of many Furians. Although Vaako was a warrior, he was also a pragmatist. Conquering a newly captured world, he was ruthless to avoid prolonging conflict and to suppress resistance as quickly as possible. The logic was, by sparing as many enemy fighters as possible, Vaako preserved them for purification and inclusion in the Necromonger Empire. At some point in his ascent, Vaako married a unique woman who became known as Dame Vaako. She had no official military rank, but her attention was sought after by all the higher echelons of the empire. Although she was with Vaako, this did not stop others from trying to ingratiate themselves with her and win her away from her husband. Vaako was aware of these attempts, but they did not anger him because he understood his rivals' motives. Seeing, or more precisely, meeting Dame Vaako, most men and many women couldn't help themselves. They lost control and began to desire her even against their will. Thus, the fact that Dame decided to become his wife was a matter of pride for Vaako. However, Dame Vaako was consumed by excessive ambitions. She constantly pushed her husband to strive for a higher position, even hinting at murder to advance his career. In her view, without her, Vaako would have never reached such a high position. On the battlefield, he was unbeatable. But once in the maze of politics and court intrigues, Vaako was like a lost child, and it was she who taught him to achieve what he wanted. So Vaako and his dame were almost the perfect couple. They complemented each other and were the perfect embodiment of the phrase, husband and wife, one devil. And if it weren't for one surprise, Vaako would have had a brilliant future. Conquering one world after another, the Necromongers reached the planet Helion Prime. Vaako was entrusted with the capture, and once again, he brilliantly accomplished the task. After destroying most of the anti-air defense system and air force of Helion Prime, the Necromonger forces began systematically suppressing the remaining pockets of resistance on Helion. Once all dissent was crushed, the Lord Marshal gathered the planetary government in the capital to accept their surrender. There he demonstrated his inhuman strength, instilling terror in the defeated. The rulers of Helion Prime began to kneel, but among them was Riddick, who alone remained standing. Vaako, who was the closest Necromonger officer to Riddick, frowned irritably. There was always someone too stubborn or ignorant to submit. Vaako patiently offered the violator one last chance to accept the Lord Marshal's offer. It was useful to show the defeated that the stubborn could be persuaded both by words and by weapons. But Riddick still refused. He had come to face and kill the Necromonger Irgun, who had killed his friend Imam Abu al-Walid. Riddick exacted his revenge in front of everyone, after which the Necromongers captured him. When they learned that Riddick was a Furion, he escaped, and Vaako was sent to track him down. Initially, Vaako was angry and puzzled. Riddick seemed like an ordinary man to him, and he took the task of hunting him as an unworthy demotion. But his wife persuaded him to obey the Lord Marshal, not grumble, and wait for the Marshal to show weakness to exploit it. Agreeing, Vaako assembled a squad and went in search of Riddick. While Vaako hunted for Riddick, his wife attempted to find out why this Furion was so important to the Lord Marshal that he sent one of his best commanders after him. One day, Dame Vaako saw the Lord Marshal meeting with a representative of the elemental race and secretly conversing. She then interrogated one of the elementals and learned of the prophecy according to which a Furion male was destined to kill Xylaw. She passed this information to Vaako, and together they decided to exploit the Lord Marshal's weakness so Vaako could take his place. Eventually, Vaako tracked Riddick down on a sweltering planet named Crematoria. The Necromongers attacked the Furion, but at a critical moment, he unleashed a burst of energy and killed everyone except Vaako. But he too was left defenseless, and was supposed to be incinerated by the local sun. Vaako, leaving him to what he thought was certain death, returned to the Lord Marshal with a victory. For this, he was promoted to General Commander, essentially the third highest position in the Empire after the Lord Marshal and the Purifier. However, Riddick survived and returned. Dame Vaako saw the gleam of his eyes in the crowd of Helion Prime. When she told this to her husband, Vaako wanted to warn the Lord Marshal, but his wife dissuaded him, for then it would appear that Vaako had not fulfilled the order, and both he and his wife would be executed. His wife convinced Vaako to use Riddick. If he truly was the hero of the prophecy, he could at least wound Xylaw, and then Vaako would kill the Lord Marshal and take his place. Vaako did not want to betray his commander, but his wife convinced him it was necessary for the sake of the entire Empire and their faith, claiming Xylaw had become too weak from the fear of the Furion to lead the Necromongers any longer. This argument influenced Vaako, and he agreed to the betrayal. Riddick eventually did reach the Lord Marshal and engaged him in combat. However, even he lacked the strength to win. But at the crucial moment, his friend Kira helped, and Xylaw was wounded. Vaako immediately attacked the Lord Marshal and nearly killed him, but he dodged using his superpowers, right into Riddick's strike. Eventually, the prophecy was fulfilled. The Furion killed the Lord Marshal and took his place, and Vaako and his wife found themselves in an unenviable position. According to Necromonger customs, by killing the Lord Marshal, Riddick automatically took his place and became their leader. However, it soon became apparent that the Furion refused to undergo the purification ritual, adopt the faith of Necroism, or continue the conquests of other worlds. The commanders began to grumble and organize assassination attempts on Riddick. After one such attempt, Vaako approached Riddick and offered a deal. If Riddick would step down and allow Vaako to take the position of Lord Marshal, he would tell Riddick the coordinates of his home planet, Furia. Vaako was the only one who knew where Furia was, and it had been erased from all records. Riddick agreed, and at Vaako's command, he was transported to a planet, claiming it was Furia. However, when he was dropped there, it turned out that Vaako had deceived him. Riddick miraculously survived in that world and eventually managed to escape. Having escaped the planet, Riddick returned to the Necromonger fleet to kill Vaako. He had not forgiven the betrayal, but he found only Commander Crone in the Lord Marshal's quarters. Attempting to find out where Vaako was, but failing to do so, Riddick killed Crone. He then turned to his former concubine and asked, "Is Vaako alive or dead?" She said only both, implying that Vaako had become half dead. That is, he had passed through the threshold, like all Lord Marshals before him, and gained superhuman abilities. Riddick turned to the window through which the ship faced a portal to the Underverse, and saw Vaako utter just one word: transcendence. That's where Vaako's story has paused for now. However, considering that the new movie, Riddick Furia, is soon to be released, where the main character will head to his planet, Vaako must still play his part. After all, he was indeed the only one from whom Riddick could learn the coordinates of his homeland. I don't know about you, but I would be delighted to see Karl Urban reprise this legendary role. And that's all from me. If you like this video, don't forget to rate it, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell. Your activity is the best reward for me. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Goodbye.